Donald Trump is having a very good week, and Democrats are having a very bad week, part of a very bad year. But I feel like we spend way too much time reacting to what the left is saying about the right. I'm not going to do that. I've told you that for months because there's a lot of good news that no one's talking about, and that's where we start tonight. Yesterday, President Trump signed an executive order requiring proof of citizenship when you register to vote in this country, which is not only common sense, it's something that is required in every Western country on the planet. This is very good news. But NBC disagrees, claiming that the sweeping order could disenfranchise millions of people, which is exactly what it's supposed to do. It's supposed to prevent the millions of illegals that the last administration let into the country from voting in our elections, which is common sense. If you don't have a voter ID or some sort of identification, guess what? You can't vote, and that's not controversial. It's common sense. Common sense for 84% of the country. Common sense for almost everyone except this remarkably handsome gentleman on MSNBC.
We could eliminate all voter registration laws. See, when Democrats get in charge, we try to protect voting rights. We don't make voting easier. Now, I'm all for voter eligibility requirements. We only started having voter registration, generally speaking, after the Civil War. Why do you think that is? It's because a bunch of freed African slaves were migrating up north, and all of a sudden New York was like, we need some registration up in here.
And I just want to show that one more time, if I could. Look at the banner on the bottom of the screen. 10 popular laws that are ruining America. To Democrats, voter ID is ruining America, which is just more good news for Republicans. Just keep on thinking that, Democrats. Keep reporting that. Republicans will continue to win. Donald Trump also just revoked the security clearances for dozens of people. Didn't get a lot of attention. These people all hate Donald Trump, which is not something you would normally see an administration do. But when I read you the list of names, you'll understand exactly why he did it. Jake Sullivan, Letitia James, Alvin Bragg, Adam Kinzinger, Fiona Hill, Joe Biden, Liz Cheney, Kamala Harris, Hillary Clinton, and Antony Blinken. Look at that group right there and think about the last 4 years. Bad news for Democrats, very good news for Republicans. Now, each one of the names that I just listed will have to get their news from us. I'm not convinced they're watching Newsmax, but who knows? It's a brave new world. Maybe they are. And there was this. More good news as Democrat judges continue their crusade to protect criminals through what we're calling judge fair. A new poll proves just how out of touch they really are. 63% of voters, nearly two-thirds of America, favor Donald Trump's immigration policies, which is why Donald Trump is more popular right now politically than he's ever been before.
If the polls have historically underestimated Donald Trump, what is a metric that might get at understanding at how popular he may actually be? So let's take a look at the percentage of the country who say that we're on the right track. It's actually a very high percentage when you compare it to some historical numbers. What are we talking about? According to Maris, 45% say that we're on the right track. That's the second highest that Maris has measured since 2009. How about NBC News? 44%. That's the highest since 2004. Wow. The bottom line is the percentage of Americans who say we're on the right track is through the roof.
All of that, and Democrats have not changed a thing, which is, again, very good news for Republicans. According to a new poll, Kamala Harris is now the front runner for the Democrats in 2028 at 36%. And normally at this moment, you know what I would do. I'd play a soundbite of her cackling, that famous cackle. But because so many of you reached out to me the last time I did that, I'm not going to do that anymore. You get what I'm talking about. But Kamala Harris leading the Democratic Party is good news for Republicans, and so is this. According to that same poll, many Democrats think that this very confused woman is also not only a rising star in the Democrat Party, but perhaps the future of the party.
Thank you so much, Morgan, because we in these hot Texas streets, honey. Y'all know we got Governor Hot Wheels down there. Come on now. And the only thing hot about him is that he is a hot mess, honey. So yes.
Jasmine Crockett loves to swear, doesn't appear to be very bright. It's cruel to insult someone because of a disability, and we know that because the media reminded us every time Joe Biden sounded a little bit off, sounded a little bit strange. We were told it was because he had a stutter as a child, and miraculously, 80 years later, it suddenly returned. But it had nothing to do with Joe Biden's cognitive health. Don't you dare talk about Joe Biden having dementia. Take a look at this.
Every time he comes on stage or they turn to him, I'm like, Joe, can you get it out? Let's get the words out, Joe. You kind of feel bad for him.
How do you think it makes little kids with stutters feel when they see you make a comment like that? I think you were mocking his stutter, and I think you have absolutely no standing to diagnose somebody's cognitive decline. I would think that somebody in the Trump family would be more sensitive to people who do not have medical licenses diagnosing politicians from afar.
And that brings us right back to Jasmine Crockett. If she's the new leader of the Democratic Party, that is more good news for Republicans. But maybe the Jasmine Crockett that you just heard from isn't actually the real Jasmine Crockett. Maybe she's pretending to be somebody she's not. Maybe she's an imposter. Did you know that Jasmine Crockett attended one of the most expensive prep schools in the country? It turns out that Jasmine Crockett graduated from a school called St. Louis Country Day School, which costs almost $35,000 a year to attend. And while Jasmine wants the world to think that she's from the street, she is. But that street is called North Warson Road, and it's one of the wealthiest streets in St. Louis. But my, how she has changed from just 3 years ago.
No one could have told me that when I went down to Austin, now it looks like a little bit over a year ago, that I would be running for Congress. It's just not what my plan was. But what I've always decided is that I would step up when there was a need.
He's hearing all kinds of nonsense, and let me just be real, and we weren't gonna sit for we wouldn't, you know, we showed up, and if he had some sense, then maybe we would have been about that life.
When she called me and said, I think it's time for me to retire, and you're the one that I believe should take my seat, I really was kind of caught off guard.
She went from girl next door to trash in 3 years. Can you believe that's the same person? It is. My goodness, what happened to poor little Jasmine Crockett? Washington has really had a negative impact on her. But this is all good news for Republicans, because every day that Jasmine Crockett is leading the Democrats, Republicans are leading Washington. And that brings us back to the fake texting scandal we talked about yesterday. I told you this is going to be a one-day story, and this is still absolutely a one-day story. Nothing has changed in the last 24 hours. But you also can't blame Democrats for trying to win a news cycle for once. They haven't won a news cycle since before the election. I can't remember the last time they won a news cycle, and they're trying their best right now, but they are still losing. It's remarkable. Elizabeth Warren tweeting that the American people aren't stupid. Pete Hegseth disclosed sensitive information and then lied about it. President Trump must fire Pete Hegseth. So Elizabeth Warren is claiming that Pete Hegseth lied. Did you see that? And then lied about it. So a woman who has spent her entire adult life telling people that she's an Indian is now calling somebody else a liar. A woman who in 1984, and I'm not kidding, submitted a recipe to a cookbook called Pow Wow Chow is now calling someone else a liar. Kettle, please meet pot. Her name is Elizabeth Warren, the fake Indian. And that is more good news for Republicans, because Democrats, even when they tried their best to turn this fake story into a real story, they still fail. And Donald Trump wins again. Republicans win again. Good and bad, whatever the news is, whatever it is, the good news and the bad news are the exact same, because both are actually good news for Republicans and even better news for Donald Trump.
Information. Truth is freedom. Is Newsmax. It's real news for real people.